Transition awareness breathing. Feeling grounded for both children and parents is essential for healthy living and learning. Join Eartha Powell on this series for tips and tools for creating a harmonious environment for learning. Transition awareness breathing will help you and your child find an individualized path to tackle change, promote lifelong learning, and discover new approaches to calmness.
I'm reflecting as a facilitator and a instructor that it's one thing to develop a monologue of a story to help learners and participants understand a concept so that the topic that we discuss is clear. Oftentimes, when we're talking about concepts and things that's not tangible, it's kind of hard to picture it and to really practice it because it's so vague. That's one thing, to develop that monologue. It's another thing when life happens and everything that we have talked about for the trainer, for the facilitator, life happens and we have to use what we have practiced. And I share that with you because that's what's going on with me. And so I want to be transparent with you on this session and open so that maybe it will help you. But before I get started, I would like to thank Web Talk Radio for allowing me to bring Transition Awareness Breathing podcast to you. And to my producers, Mary Lou and Sam, thank you so much for making Transition Awareness Breathing podcast available for my listeners wherever they go. Okay, so let me take a deep breath and guide you to a practice that maybe might help you in the future, or maybe you can help somebody else. So it's been a busy week, and for new listeners, this is Eartha, and I am so happy to bring Transition Awareness Breathing to you. This past week, we had a death in our family, and it was my dear father-in-law. He fought a very tough battle, and that battle is over, and he is no longer in the amount of distress and discomfort and pain that he had been undergoing for the last few years. And so I share that with you to let you know that as we were going through this, and as I was going through this, I really used a lot of the mindfulness practices, because it is a experience when you lose someone that really opens up a lot of emotions, and it floods all over the place, the emotions, and the people within that inner circle is also dealing with the same loss, but exhibiting emotions a little differently. And so how are we working through this? Well, I often found reflection was very helpful for me. The loss is real, and we're going to miss all those times where we shared with my father-in-law. But as I reflect on a lot of wonderful memories and things that we would share when we would talk. And so we would share and talk about gardening. And I had planted a garden. And I began to look at the garden in a really mindful perspective. We take seeds or little plantlings and we bury them in the dirt. And especially with seeds, you bury them in the dirt and that's it. You water it and you nurture it. And when that seed goes in the dirt, it has to break down so that the seedling can come up. And after a few weeks, the garden is full of life. And so I see the circle of life as a process that we are in these pods, our body, like a seed, and we're here and we're sharing and we're living and we're touching, and hopefully we're making a change in this world. And whatever belief system that you may have, when we all get to the point where it's time for us to move on out of this world, we go to a different existence. And whatever your belief is, it's okay. But if we look at the circle of life, and I look at my garden, I see that when that seed is planted, new life comes up in a different form. And that was so inspiring for me. That new form never existed for that seed. It just knew it was a seed. It didn't know it was a pepper plant. It didn't know it was a squash plant, but it bloomed into whatever it was meant to be. And so reflecting and mindfully looking at new life was very inspiring for me. And being non-judgmental with myself and with others, because everybody displays grief differently. And so to be very accepting of others and just be one who listens. And that's what I found myself doing, just listening. In the mindfulness perspective, I guess I want to say that I was putting myself, or I found myself in a position of really sharing compassion. And so the compassion in a mindfulness perspective is reaching out, being supportive, reaching out and just listening and allowing people to be who they are in a non-judgmental fashion. That sounds strange. I knew that compassion is a very important part of mindfulness. And so the practice of compassion really became the top shelf skill for mindfulness for me during this time, especially when I was explaining the death of my father-in-law to my children. And one is a teenager and one is a preteen, almost a preteen, not exactly a preteen, and so explaining it to them, that was very, very much so a time where I had to allow myself to be a listener and not someone that is trying to, you don't tell people that it's okay to cry when they're not crying, or it's okay to be this, and it's okay, giving them permission. It's, using open-ended questions and allowing whatever questions they may have, however difficult it may be to answer some of those questions. And sometimes the questions would come up over and over and over again. And I understood that what was really going on was they were processing that, their grandfather has died. And so we all together are learning a new normal, and also sharing that sometimes, affirmations, even during these tough times, is very useful. My husband and my brother-in-law, they had shown so much compassion and so much tenacity during this whole process. And they were there, and they are there for their parents. And so their expression for love for their parents was shown in such a wonderful, beautiful way. Now, as we move on and develop a new normal for our life, we look at the future with much appreciation and many positive memories, and yet the appreciation for love and for compassion and for life, it seems like it's renewed. It seems like that plant that just first was a seed, and now it's a plant. And so just the opportunity to even share with you is such, I feel like, a blessing. And so, we're going to move on, and we're not going to give up, and we're going to learn from our experience of how to even live our life with richness and with compassion, with sensitivity, and to take one day at a time, because this is a process to kind of get used to this new normal. And so just taking time out and just breathing, taking a breath and looking and appreciating the environment around us, and saying these words of affirmation. It could be different for everybody, but for me, it's like, okay, today is a new day, and I'm thankful for today, and I want to help someone else today. And so I hope that as I talked through this process, as we're moving through this grief and this loss, I hope this was a little bit helpful, and maybe you could share it with someone. Everybody is different in understanding that, and I think that is so important, that we don't put expectations or judgments on other people, because everyone processes differently. So, thank you so much for joining me today in Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. I look forward to talking to you again next time. Have a great day.
Be sure and pick up a copy of Eartha's new book, Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's not just an ordinary coloring book. It features 23 illustrations to stimulate thought, relaxation, and creativity for anyone between the ages of 4 and 94. Increase your positive self-talk energy, unlock new creative paths, transform your time once or twice a week to create beautiful art while strengthening confidence, building positive self-talk, and sensitize self-awareness. Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's available now at Amazon.com.